And we are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Best Phone Plans Podcast. Tonight, I have a super special guest to the show, the man, the myth, the legend himself, SneedMobileTech.
You don't want to give me too much attention, man. You really don't. I don't deserve all that.
I mean, you are the appointed father of the SMT community, and I'm Tech Jesus, so I
That's
think
right.
I think I have the privilege as Tech Jesus to bless you and anoint you here, as you knighted me on your show. But anyway, jokes and fun aside, guys, it's so good to see so many friendly faces already in the chat. Ram, good to see you, my friend. Jamie, hi to you as well. David, yo. Prab, Deep, Dewal, good to see you. Jason, good to see you. MS and Jarko. And where is Stetson? Stetson has been fired. No, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, Stetson's on a cool little thing going on in Colorado. He should be back for next week's show, but he was doing a thing, so I'm just kind of holding down the fort. But okay. Intros, jokes aside, tonight's going to be an action-packed show full of news. There's going to be a few different topics that we're talking about. Number one is some crazy fixed wireless stats that are just bonkers to hear about that came in. We're going to talk a little bit about, of course, about Docsis, or excuse me, Dennis 4.0. But most importantly of all is a topic that I'm spicy about, and we're going to kick it off with, which is Verizon had a hack occur. Now, Sneed.
Hack attack, man. Hack attack.
Now, Sneed, have you heard about this data breach that occurred?
I know the very basics of it. I understand the premise of what happened. But I do want to kind of like digest it with you, pick it apart a little bit. And then I think after we talk through it, because Dennis, oftentimes you throw some things from different angles at me, and then I'm like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. So like let's discuss it, and then let's see how bad it is.
Sure. So I did go ahead and share it as a link in the chat as well for other people to click on, if they so choose. And I'm also sharing it up on the screen right now. All right. So basically, here's the scoop. This was a social engineering attack. A person basically pretended to be working for Verizon's IT team and convinced a Verizon employee to allow them to install software onto their corporate computer, and they were able to skim basically information in regards to like employees' names, numbers, job titles, stuff like that from the directory. And that's what's been confirmed. We don't know what else has been confirmed to been stolen, but we do know that for a fact. Vice in the article was able to confirm that these were either people that currently worked for or had previously worked with Verizon by contacting the numbers. And Verizon themselves actually has been in contact with the person that commenced this breach. The hacker said they would like to get paid $250,000 as like a reward, but Verizon just straight up said they have no interest in working with them,
Like as a settlement or
yeah,
whatever.
they're just like, yeah, we're good. So yeah, we don't really know the finer details yet because this is kind of fresh. But let's give Verizon the benefit of the doubt and just say that the person only got the names, positions, and like phone numbers and contact emails for employees. What are your thoughts on that, Sneed?
I mean, in and of itself, those items are still a lot, Dennis. I mean, so there's a lot of stuff that can be jeopardized. Employee information, their personal information, plus their positions, what they can do and what they have access to within the company. And they've already made it pretty clear that they want to negotiate. Verizon said they don't want to negotiate. Like this all seems pretty bad right off the rip. And I think actually the most ironic part, Dennis, is it's been like Cyber Week at Verizon. They've been like dropping videos on like the Inside Verizon YouTube channel and all that. And it's been like cyber this and security that. I mean, it's almost like they literally, the hackers literally waited for this week to do this. It's crazy. So the irony of it's pretty crazy, but it's probably worse than we know at face value because it just depends those specific employees how much stuff or what type of sensitive stuff is compromised. What ends up happening to the consumer remains to be seen. I mean, I'm sure some particular employees do have access to consumer accounts. So that, somehow, some way they get through the system, keystrokes and key logging. I mean, who knows, Dennis? We should just assume the worst. All right. We assume the worst with T-Mobile. I got to keep that same energy. Hacks happening here on this side now. And if this was preventable, if this was something that could have been prevented, like how that person pretended, was a bad actor and pretended to be an employee and getting in and all this, bro, that is atrocious. That is a horrible breach of security. Because there's a lot of authentication that takes place with employment and keys and stuff like that. I'm kind of shocked, man. I mean, it seems like this was complete negligence. So I'm surprised that it happened under those terms, but I'm not surprised there's a hack, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So, Sneed, as you know, I have a common slogan that I feel like I should be known by now, which is take the human out of the equation. And this is a perfect example of how the human is the weakest link in all security measures, because this wasn't a hack of like Verizon security systems. This was basically convincing someone like myself
I'm supposed to be here. Right.
Yeah.
Let me in. Right.
Yeah. So that's a thing. Now, I did post this on Twitter. I got some interesting responses of people that weren't too upset about the directory information being hacked, leaked, or gathered. But the reason why, even if it was just the directory of information, this is bad, is because now, for anyone that wants to be nefarious, now people have accurate information of the job titles of people to start targeting. They could start trying to do password resets to figure out like what the password is. They could try to pretend to be someone else within the company that may work within that organization to convince the victim that they need to do X, Y, and Z, and they can make it look more likely because like you can tweak your email just enough, like maybe Verizon emails are whatever at vzn.com
VZW, right?
or something like that, and you can tweak it ever so slightly so that it's like at vzn.net, something that maybe someone might not necessarily notice as much, and have it look just prim and proper, especially if you had a chance to actually go into an employee's email and see what the official documentation looks like. You can really craft it to look very, very similar, to start getting additional info. Peter B said directory info. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, it is. Again, some of the responses on Twitter, people didn't understand why that's important, but it really primes the setup for like the victims of who you want to target, because also in there their phone number, which means that you can now look up their phone number to see what carrier it's with, and maybe just attack them in that way. I try to get a SIM swap attack going, get ownership of their number. Now you have access to a ton of stuff, because I know even Verizon probably uses SMS as a two-factor authentication recovery method. I'm going to assume.
If you want to, yeah.
So this is not great, and I think the most important thing about this story shows it basically proves what I've been saying all along, which is all telecom companies really suck when it comes to security at the moment.
Yeah, you've been saying that for a while, Dennis. I think this is just patting you on the back right here, man.
I don't feel good about it, but honestly,
yeah,
a low-level employee shouldn't have access to the whole directory. The only thing they should see at max is the rest of their team that they're under from a supervisor standpoint. There's no reason for them to have access to the rest of the Verizon database as far as employees go. Yeah. I think that would have been an easy way to stop this, is just limit the access that regular old employees have. Like, why do you need to see who's the director of engineering in Ohio? You don't. So, Pete, I got you, my friend. More specifically, Sneed, do you have Pete's email so we can invite him?
I do.
All right, let me get you an invite.
I could just forward it to him if you want, Dennis.
That would be so fantastic.
I got you, bro. Carry on the show, man. You're holding it down. Go ahead, buddy.
But as we're waiting for Pete to go, and I almost don't want to transition topics because Pete's sort of an expert when it comes to white hat hacking, so he will definitely share some more valuable information when it comes to this kind of breach and other ways that this information could be utilized. So I'm going to give Pete here a couple seconds. But while we're waiting too, Sneed, how long do you think it'll be until we hear about a major data breach from AT&T? Because we've had T-Mobile, we've gotten Verizon
They're
now.
up next, right?
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't come, honestly, man. Because I feel like the first initial, like the blunt of any blow when it comes to cybersecurity, I usually feel like it's probably the risk of the consumer. If it's on the employee side, I don't know. I don't know if AT&T is any different. I don't know if their employees are any better. I don't know. Are the threats worse or the same? I mean, I'm sure there have been hacks that have been kept under the rug, kept behind closed doors. But this one got out, and this one might be worse than we know. But yeah, I'm sure AT&T deals with it too. Oh, snap the pup, man. Yeah.
What's up, Pete?
Oh yeah. I'm sitting in a park with a puppy.
Well, Pete,
What's going on, Pete?
you're a bit of a security expert. Do you have anything you want to share as far as how the directory information about employees could be utilized to commit further breaches, or anything you want to share?
Well, I'm gonna have to start by correcting you with the VZW.net. You can use the same exact email as the CEO or director of technology. No password required because of how email works. If you compose a telnet an email with the header information you can get from the directory information, you can do an impersonation 100% completely just by sending a packet with that information.
So you're making this worse.
Yeah. So basically, was it Hans Vesberg's email is out in the open giving promotions away.
That's the first thing I thought about, Pete, when you said every single email within the company can now be replicated.
Yep, we know everything, including the phone number for their signature.
Yeah, but the hackers are going to have to be very slick about when they send their emails, or because like Hans would just verify, or if he got a reply from them. But I mean, who knows how many would go through and confirm things or click on things. And
I mean, you can also send it to the return address as a different one in the packet in the email than the sending address.
Yeah.
I have the ability to do that in Gmail.
Pete, how bad is this rated, man? Out of 5 stars, 5 being like the worst.
I'd give it, max of 3.
Potentially a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because most of this information was obtainable prior to this, but some of the information you can use to figure out the password and whatnot. And if a password hash is included in the directory, you could, if you do enough recon, you could get into their network.
Hey, so Sneed and Pete, I feel like it's really easy to call out when there's a problem, right? It's really easy to do. I guess my next question will be, is there anything that we as consumers can do to harden our personal security in case we do see some malicious emails come out that look legit, or anything that we should be asking Verizon, or anything we should be asking Verizon to do, specifically employees, since they're the ones that are being targeted?
Well, step 1 is everybody should update their password at Verizon.
Yeah, go ahead and reset it, create a new password.
But for customers, just don't reply to an email from Verizon you're not expecting.
Yeah, like if you're calling in customer care and they send you an authentication link, then that's good. But if you're just sitting down on your couch and you have no need to hear or contact them, I wouldn't reply.
Yeah, that it does open the door to end user phishing attacks.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, let's move on to a different topic. This is one that you posted on and directly called me out on, Sneed.
Ah,
And this has to do with the Fierce Wireless article that talks about Tammy Irwin leaving and some of her final remarks and some statistics that she made. I'm going to go ahead and share a link with that in the comments so that way everybody else can pull up the article as well if they'd prefer to view it on their own personal devices of choice. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen like I previously did before, except with this specific tab.
by the way, I just want to throw this out there. If Tammy Irwin was not leaving at the end of this year, she wouldn't have publicly said any of this.
Oh,
Yep.
100%. 100%.
Because that's just not Verizon's MO. They've never talked like this, but clearly she's like, I'm done at the end of this year. I ain't got no reputation to uphold with these idiots out here.
Real
Yes.
quick, I want to answer a comment from Franco.
Sure.
This is a Pixel 6 Pro on T-Mobile Magenta Business.
It looks good, Pete.
Sure. So, all right. So, yeah. So, this is a post. This is some of like Tammy's final remarks. It kind of goes over her time at doing business with Verizon, and specifically the part that I personally found interesting has to do with a few statistics that she talked about. One was, well, they're all mainly primarily existing with fixed wireless, and specifically, I believe she had mentioned that, yeah, about 80% of Verizon's business fixed wireless customers are using Verizon's fixed wireless broadband as their primary use case, not a secondary backup. That is the point that Sneed called me out on, and in and of itself, it sounds really impressive. Sneed, I know you were really jazzed when you saw that stat.
I was surprised.
But I'm here to kind of tear it down a peg.
Push back. Go ahead, buddy.
All right, so you have to remember, Tammy was working with like small to medium-sized businesses, generally speaking. Businesses that typically aren't going to be needing or necessarily affording like enterprise levels of fibers for their company needs. They were probably going to be relying on cable if they had it, or they might have even been on DSL. Like those were like the competitors there. And I'm willing to bet that these smaller to medium-sized businesses that Verizon has been picking up were strictly looking at it from a cost perspective, primarily, and the use cases for why they needed internet probably didn't require the same level of redundancy, consistency, and other features that come from having like a dedicated fiber line. Or the features, maybe they were just features they didn't need from like a typical traditional ISP that might have been cable. For example, picture your gas station that has a point of sale that just has a few card readers that need to be powered and maybe a couple security cameras. That's my guess on why that's so high. It's just price and having to do with the business needs themselves. Because fixed wireless can work just fine, especially when you consider that literally satellite gets used all the time in rural areas, over cable even, when it's just a little point of sale on a card reader, like at the bakery, you know. That was my thought, and that was like one of my first thoughts when I saw it. Do you have any rebuttal, or do you just think that business customers are just really that jazzed about the fixed wireless?
I mean, they've wanted a competitor, and here they are. You know, here's Verizon holding it down where they don't have wireline. You know, so they're doing more with their wireless than I think people give them credit for. So one of the things I think that's important to note, Dennis, you framed it properly. All right, the way that you presented it is correct and accurate. The thing is they don't seem all that concerned that they're on fixed wireless and they're not on a wire line. It looks like it's reliable enough. You think it goes down for maybe twice a year? You know, a situation where a transaction fails or cameras go out, you know, whatever the situation or use case is. It just seems like to me, Verizon's betting like, you know, 98% accuracy, right? They're betting a high percentage, and the customers are cool with it. Maybe occasionally going down, and it's not for long. And
I just felt like this was kind of cherry picked. Like in this circumstance for businesses of this size.
You know what I think is happening, Dennis? I think the cable companies are pushing this. They're pushing the narrative that wireline is more dependable. And That's probably the case 99% of the time. But there is a select, you know, like take for example the SMT headquarters. It's either AT&T fiber or Cox here, and Cox is trash, and fixed wireless
So,
is better than Cox. So for those people that are having troubled and complicated connectivity issues that some of these cable ISPs aren't handling, they're probably just glad to get on a steady wireless connection that doesn't need incredibly low latency, and the capacity, the throughput is just enough. And to me, that's what that means, Dennis. Was 80 to 85% of these people are satisfied with what Verizon brings to the table. That's pretty high rate, especially when a lot of people were probably thinking that wasn't accurate. And then here comes, and by the way, Tammy Irwin has no reason to lie. She's above reproach when it comes to the industry. I mean, sheesh, dude. When Verizon was purging customers and hemorrhaging users, she continues to add 200, 300,000 every quarter. She adds as many customers in business in one quarter than T-Mobile's ever added in a year. Like, take T-Mobile's best year. They've never done what she's done in a quarter. And she has the most expensive service. And she's just like, I'm going to listen to my customers. I'm going to build what they want. I'll install this antenna. I'll do this, that, and the third. I think what she's trying to say, Dennis, is when the wireless is good enough and you do everything else right, the customer stays and they use them as a primary.
Yeah, I mean, I generally think that everything about what you're saying, Steve, is true. I think the stat is probably true. I just felt like it was sort of cherry picked in the sense that, like, if you're a company of this, basically, if a company doesn't have an actual IT department, they pick fixed wireless. Any company that has the affordability to afford an IT department is either going to have dedicated fiber or they're going to have redundancy in their network infrastructure. And by that, I mean, even if they had a great fiber provider, they're probably still going to have a cellular backup to boot. But I actually saw Go ahead.
In this article, Tammy did point out that more and more businesses are using them as the primary internet connection as opposed to a backup.
Right. That's why I was saying it's somewhat cherry picked, is what I was getting at.
Got a couple other comments.
Yeah, I got one of them highlighted.
Luke asked about the directory hack and Mvnos. They should not be affected because they're not part of the directory. And I'm actually curious regarding how well the fixed wireless goes when we're able to see what T-Mobile is doing with their 100 or 300 gig 5G hotspots.
Yeah, but I do have a comment also highlighted from Philip, which I think also is a perfect example of this working fine. He said, first off, Philip Gilmore, thank you for commenting. He said, we use fixed wireless as connection for our business. We have no issues running our phone store off it for our point of sale, video advertising, and live phone displays. Price was his ultimatum. And when you're targeting those smaller businesses, let's just say companies with less than 1,100 employees, I would say, when you're targeting those companies, I think price makes a bigger impacting factor overall above like features, because they just don't have the same needs as an enterprise company. You know what I mean? They're not going to have multiple locations that need to have direct connections for, say, their call center workers and then for their other departments. But anywho, I wanted to talk about this because you called me out on it. Was there anything else about this article that you wanted to discuss, Sneed, personally? Because I know you were the one that called me out on it.
No, I wasn't even really calling out. I just knew it was going to be a great point to discuss. I figured, like, nobody is as diehard about a wireline connection. And then here comes fixed wireless. Like, hey, we're doing some big things over here. And that's when I thought of you, Dennis, because I knew you'd get a raz out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're implying that, fixed wireless can compete with like fiber and cable. And it doesn't really, not traditionally, not for the enterprise use case, at least.
The best way I can describe it's like this: fixed wireless doesn't need to compete with fiber. They have a perfectly good niche that they can fulfill, and there's some overlap between the niches, of course, as we talked about with small businesses. But in no world does fixed wireless ever become fiber. No matter how much you say it or beat it on a drum, wireless doesn't just turn into fiber. Fiber is fiber. It's the gold standard. Coax, despite what you believe, I will die on this hill, I would still say is the next best thing, because at least in practice it doesn't mean it's executed upon, but if we talk about the potential that is there with that coaxial cable is far more larger in size than the 5G that we have today, simply because all of the MNOs are spectrum
So let me
limited.
ask you something, Dennis. What's better? Is AT&T better than Comcast as a company?
No.
No way. It's just that they sell fiber.
Right.
You like it's the product itself that makes AT&T tolerable. Nobody wants AT&T. We know what AT&T can do. Like, we know what they're capable of. Like, the scummiest things of all time have been done at AT&T, right? But they have fiber, so we tolerate.
Yes.
And I think the same thing goes like with Comcast and Spectrum. A lot of people view them as these evil companies, and these companies are pretty nasty, so we tolerate them. We trust them as far as we could throw them.
Right. I'm just focusing strictly on the technology aspect, which is
what makes them tolerable. Otherwise, we'd be like, they can shove it,
Right. But I'm just strictly focusing as it stands today, unless a Christmas miracle happens for the carriers and they suddenly get access to like 1 gigahertz of mid-band each.
But even then, you got to run the fiber, man,
Yeah, but unless
gotta
that
get that heavy
happens,
fiber.
coax technically has more potential because there's 3 gigahertz worth of spectrum that could be utilized over an existing coaxial cable. So, anyway, that was a fun topic. Slightly on the same note that was talked about in this article was Tammy's thoughts on T-Mobile, which she said that she really didn't view T-Mobile or AT&T, for that matter, as competitors in the business space, which I think leads perfectly into the topic, which is T-Mobile's got a new shiny 5G advanced network solution. Sneed, have you heard about this?
Yeah, covered that earlier in the week.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
sir.
basically while I'm pulling this up, T-Mobile is doing edge computing with the help and partnership with Dell Technologies as a way to help meet business customers and enterprise customers' needs, because T-Mobile has been pushing hard to get into that business space. And I guess my first question for you, Sneed, because you posted it on Twitter, and I want to know what your thoughts have been since you got the responses, is do you think T-Mobile has a chance? Do you think they really have an actual chance to make a real targeted grasp in the business space? Because they've always struggled.
Well, they're going to eventually at some point have to go in on fiber. Without owning and operating their own fiber, they kind of just become these partners. Like maybe they use their brand recognition. Maybe they use their standalone 5G network core as some kind of a, unique feature set. They get ahead in some ways. Without owning the fiber, they can't really truly create the capacity, and they can't make the commitments, the dedicated commitments to the service requirements. So let's say Dennis, I don't know, we'll make up a company, Dennis 4.0, whatever that company is. They deliver goods or whatever, and they do, up to the minute, up to the second live inventory managing and tracking, right? For trucking companies, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If they're going to be using T-Mobile as a network as a service, so what is T-Mobile going to be? A, secure, B, committed to dedicated performance metrics. Like your Dennis 4.0 might need and require 100 megabits per second across 50 network devices, and they're going to run surveillance, they're going to run POS, and they're going to run some type of sensor technology for scanning. I don't know, whatever. All of that has to have latency sub 5 milliseconds. And so your requirements, you frame it, right? I need network slicing with A, B, C, and D. Can you meet it? T-Mobile says, yes, we have partners for this. Here's our RAN providers. We're going to use Nokia, Ericsson, and VMware, or whoever's providing software and network slicing and all those features. Man, at the end of it, like, I hope they don't end up being like partners and not the actual provider. Because like Verizon's doing their own edge compute. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what they're gonna be the owners of the network as a service, and they're gonna be owners of the edge, and the cloud services is all they have to get as a facilitator. Like they're gonna they have partnerships with like what is it? It is what is the Microsoft company, the cloud services? Azure, yeah. So like you have that, and then you have like AWS. You got all these other. That's really the only thing you're gonna need is cloud computing, and then you're good to go. So do they have those partnerships? Have they done these things? I don't know. To me, this is them getting their name in the hat. They're saying, "Hey, we're gonna do this," and we know Verizon is, but we're gonna do it too. Man, this is gonna be the hardest thing. Like T-Mobile knows how to take consumers. Do they know how to get into the enterprise? I treat them the same way I treat Dish in that respect. Dish hasn't proven anything, right? So people doubt them, and I get that. I agree, right? They have to prove. I kind of view T-Mobile that way too when it comes to enterprise. They haven't really done anything yet. So we have to see how they execute this. But for now, I view them as just trying to kind of establish partnerships within the industry.
Pete, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like a enterprise partnership with Dell might actually help them get fiber in some locations sooner than they would otherwise.
Dell, Lumen, I mean, there's things that they're gonna have to execute here.
So this is actually an oddity for me, but I actually disagree with you, Sneed. I don't actually think the deployment or the infrastructure is going to be the hardest part when it comes to supporting these enterprise and business customers here, Sneed. Do you want to know what I actually think is going to be the hardest issue for them?
Well, I mean, they don't own infrastructure.
Right, but there's something that's even harder that I think than deploying the infrastructure. It is going to be the actual supporting and managing of the enterprise and business partners that they do have once they acquire them to help fulfill their needs and predict their future needs. So having trained employees dedicated to and only meant to handle enterprise customers' needs, whether it be for custom tailored solutions. Because, like, here's the thing, I guess is what I'm going for here. In the consumer space, everything is, for the most part, somewhat cookie cutter, right? You got 3 plans: Magenta Max, Magenta Essentials. Great. You know what they are. You got...
Hey, what about Essentials Basic?
Okay, you got Essentials Basic. 4 plans to worry about that you need to know about. You got a handful of phones that are going to be what most consumers use. Typically, majority of them are falling in the Samsung and Apple camp. You might have a Motorola here and there and a OnePlus here and there, but for the most part, it's a limited amount of handsets, and that's all you really have to worry about. On the enterprise side, however, you're going to have a lot of companies that are deploying their own either open source standard that they configure to meet their needs or proprietary solutions that now you have to make sure play nicely with your network. And those are going to vary as greatly as different companies vary. And that alone is going to be a challenge, having an understanding of that, being able to have skilled, competent project managers to help deploy the solutions in combination with those enterprise customers' IT departments, providing the support and like you talked about, the security aspect, making sure that the IT department has only so much access and making sure your employees are restricted when it comes to access of what's going on between those customers. Deploying private networks for these enterprises, because a lot of times these enterprises aren't just going to want to use your network that everybody else is accessing. They're going to want a private network that is pretty much isolated from the rest of the public network, only for their internal business needs. Like a good example would be like an Amazon warehouse where you got a bunch of smart bots and different automated pieces of tech wanting to communicate with each other over like 5G millimeter wave, for example. So I think the biggest problem, and one that's a lot harder and more challenging to fill, is, I'll call it the human infrastructure aspect. Having the talented personnel with experience and the knowledge to actually deal with these enterprise customers and their needs. Because you can get the tech fairly easy. I mean, you can copy and paste it into your network. These are pretty defined standards of how 5G is going to work and how edge compute works. This is not like
So here's where part of my doubts lie. We just got done with a T-Mobile investor conference or earnings report like 3 weeks ago or so, 4 weeks ago, and Mike Sievert didn't want to talk about anything advanced networking. So I don't know. Is that him being coy? Is that him just playing his cards tight, close to his body? Or is that just a sign that they're really just not really, moving forward all that fast?
I think it's that they might be moving forward, but they're not seeing the response that they were expecting from the enterprise and business case. And I think that comes down to T-Mobile's inability to build those relationships, both with the people they want to attract as customers and having the relationship with different vendors to support their customers' needs.
I have fears that the wireless carriers are standing by too much. They're standing on the sidelines. They should be pushing companies, proposing things to companies. Hey, we can do this. If you would like to do this, we can do that. Waiting for the companies to tell you what they need, the companies may not know what they need. What if you could sell them on feature XYZ? And all these other, I just remember Steve Jobs telling people what they wanted and watching how Apple just took off.
Yeah, but being able to do that requires knowledge. Like for Sneed's Bakery, I have to know a problem that Sneed's Bakery has that he doesn't even know he has.
So they have to go in and evaluate a business.
Yeah, and then not only do I need to know what your problem is, I need to have a solution planned already and explain and be able to demonstrate why this is better than what you've currently been doing, because what you've been doing in your eyes isn't broke, so why fix it? And then I have to have the skills not only to deploy that thing, but also support your business for upcoming things that happen as I continue to make changes in this ever-evolving 5G standard that we have, right? So it's, like I said, deploying something is easy. It's easy for me to deploy some wireless access points for your business and run Ethernet cables. It's a lot harder for me to manage the security for it for you and make sure that all your different devices that you want to connect to it are actually going to be able to work fine with, like, say, WPA3 encryption and what happens when a device doesn't support WPA3 password types and all the other stuff like that, right? Like, that's where things get a little trickier, because now it just requires so much more knowledge outside of the scope of what you might do as a personal business. What's up?
There's a simple solution for if the network only broadcasts on WPA3, what you do. If the device does only WPA2. Same thing we did with WPA1 when we went to WPA2 exclusivity.
And that is?
You're in a network without security to use that device. Upgrade, you cheap lout. Also, I was a little disappointed that I was unable to listen to our friend Roger talk about what you were mentioning today, or just now. He did a talk on that yesterday at Connect X.
Some of the details, Pete, what were they?
They were how carriers can encourage companies to use them for network as a service by proposing solutions to problems they didn't know they had.
Here's the thing, though, Pete. If you're going to these companies and you're saying, I have a network to sell you, allow me to build you a network, give you access to a network, and then the company's going to be like, okay, sure, we'll call you when we need you, when we make a decision on what we're going to do. And then somebody else, some other company comes in and says, hey, we're selling network as a service. We can offer you this, this, and this. Allow us to evaluate your business. What could you use or leverage these types of tools? And then allow us to sell you the network and the applications that you're trying to use.
Yeah, you need a good sales team, because
you need a team. You literally need experts of how the features can be used within their businesses.
You need deployment experts, sales experts, and going back to what Dennis said.
What does Verizon have, Pete?
Clout.
Yeah, but Verizon has those elements, man.
Yeah.
Tammy Irwin literally said that. She's like, I can send a crew to install external antennas on the roof. I can have them ring gateways. I can do all that in a day.
Yeah.
And here's what's T-Mobile going to do right now? They're going to send them the freaking trash can, bro?
They should have gotten rid of those T-Home workers, man.
So
But you
I
get what I'm
loved,
saying? There's
I
no.
loved it when the T-Home guy came by to troubleshoot my cable box.
So Sneed, I just want to say something real quick, and I feel especially emboldened with this as someone that has some enterprise sales experience. I can tell you, any enterprise company that's worth their salt has a structure that kind of looks something like this. You have your lead sale that has insert the fancy title for the company, who has under them some people that assist them. One will be like a door-to-door person that actually goes in person, in present, to basically talk to that company, right? You have another person whose whole job, their only sole responsibility, is to find the decision makers within a company and get information on them, so that way you can leverage that and target who you're talking to, so you're not just getting stopped at the front desk with the secretary. And it really is like a relationship. Sometimes it might just be. I'm not joking when I say this, Need. I remember literally having a budget when we interact with new companies of interest where we could send them stuff. And I remember one time we just straight up sent them football tickets. We just straight up sent them football tickets as like a gift. Like, it was during the process. I mean, you
Should
have
have
to be
sent them
careful.
Knicks tickets, bro, with the
I mean,
Verizon Sims for the millimeter wave.
it was during the process, and you have to be careful with like all the bribery trainings and stuff like that. But I remember we sent them straight up like football tickets. And after, even once you get past like the introduction of the PowerPoint, like you got to have like an engineer with you too to actually talk about the technical stuff. Like the salesperson doesn't need to know that. Like once you get past that front door and you start working through the process, because there's going to be way more interactions with a business customer. You might have like 16 meetings before they actually sign on it. You're going to need that engineering personnel who can explain it to their IT department. And also, you need to be able to translate that in some way. Have someone that's both competent with sales and the engineering to translate that into human English so the decision maker understands what it's going to do. And then there's the whole part where you have to work within their budgets, because companies do have hard budgets, especially during the fiscal year. Like Q1 is going to be a lot stronger for a lot of companies than the end of Q4 when it comes to deployment. So timing also matters cyclically. And there's just so many different complexities and interchanging moving parts that happen in the business space. And like I said, the most important thing of all is after you've done all that work, you have to have basically a 24/7 team that's available to support them, because when a business goes down and you're not available, you're talking tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost revenue. And it only takes one situation like that where that happens for too long, where you lose that customer forever.
Yeah, you have to be responsive. You have to be ready. You have to have answers. You have to have solutions. It's touchy, man. And those accounts can be massive. I mean, I just look at the dynamics of the money, the revenue. I mean, that's Verizon is a big business. And yeah, they have a lot of consumer lines, but their B2B is major. I mean, it's so big. And like we've had the conversations with Moose. AT&T loves their institutional agency accounts, where it's big business, it's 50,000 lines. And it's, connected
They're in data
factory.
buckets.
They're what?
50,000 lines, all in data buckets.
It's true. There is a lot of that.
Hey, real quick before we transition,
Government line experience.
real quick before we transition to the last topic that I kind of have rounded out for tonight, I want to ask, why do you think AT&T hasn't seen the same level of success in the business space as Verizon has?
AT&T does pretty good business. I just think Verizon, you look at Tammy Irwin's success, she basically spilled the beans. She said, I've done this just by listening to the customer. She's got 44% market share, dude. And FirstNet has been live for 3 years, and T-Mobile said they're going to be taking share, and they don't.
Let me put it this way. Do you think if Tammy went over to AT&T, they would experience the same level of Verizon's growth in the business space? Or do you think there's another missing puzzle?
I think she was selling a good network too. I mean, it's a combo.
I think part of AT&T's issue is for however long UVerse fiber was absolute trash.
All right. Well, changing gears, with a show with me being on, you know I always got to incorporate a piece of Docsis news into the mix.
The
And
Docsis
this
5 going to give us terabit connections?
No, this is actually what I find to be an interesting article that came up from Fierce Wireless, which talks about how Comcast executives are arguing that DOCSIS 4.0 optionality will help, not hinder deployments. So, for anyone not in the loop, which I totally understand, DOCSIS 4.0 is got a little bit of a fragmented deployment, unlike previous iterations of DOCSIS. You got cable operators basically falling in two camps. Some are taking advantage of what's referred to as extended DOCSIS, which is additional spectrum that's been made available for use on a cable network, which ranges from the 1.2 gigahertz to the 1.8 gigahertz range. Companies like Cox would be an example of this one. Other companies, however, like Comcast, are trying to focus on doing what's known as full duplex, which what full duplex does is it allows them to use basically their downstream channels that they have, which they have 32 of them, plus the OFDMA channel for both their download speeds and their upload speeds, which allows them to essentially have network parity when it comes to speeds, provide a fiber as perform. Go ahead.
I remember when when I finally got a full duplex modem, those uploads stopped taking decades. They only took years.
Anyway.
How bad?
So, 56K full duplex, upload of a 56K file took maybe 10 minutes.
What year was this?
97.
Oh, jeez.
Now before full duplex, that took like 2-3 hours, and your line disconnected by then. So,
well, anyway, focusing back on things, there's been a bit of a
saying full duplex is good.
I agree. But focusing back, though, so there's a bit of a divergence here as far as the deployment goes. I'm actually in the camp that this is actually a bad thing because this same thing happened to a minor extent back in the DOCSIS 3.1 era, which is what led to basically vendors not necessarily supporting all the features that DOCSIS 3.1 could do.
What's your fear, Dennis? What's your fear in this?
My big fear is just that whichever... I'm just going to use an example. If extended DOCSIS ends up becoming the one that more cable operators use, my fear is that vendors won't prioritize full duplex, which will cause supply constraint issues and cause companies like Comcast to just end up doing extended DOCSIS instead, since it'll be the cheaper, more affordable option. So a supply issue.
Yeah. Well, did they already start? Issue. Did they already start with their upgrades yet in most of these areas?
There was another article that I was struggling to find that I saw at work that showed how Comcast is focusing on mid splits right now. So they're pushing. So right now, as we talked about for the upstream, it's currently between 0 and 42 megahertz. They're bumping that up to 0 to 80 megahertz, and they're doing that in the meantime in prep, so that way they can start doing upgrades early, and because it doesn't require new equipment. And then companies like Spectrum are doing high splits, which extends it up to the 200 megahertz range.
So I'm seeing them. I'm seeing a lot of Spectrum crews out there,
and
I'm seeing a lot of the power companies out. They're doing upgrades like simultaneously. I'm seeing a lot of stuff getting done. I'm wondering if it's just that time of the year where they're busy, with like the weather getting better and they want to get it done before the end of the summer. But I have been seeing, Spectrum's been pretty active. And AT&T continues to build fiber. I mean, look, the thing about these types of upgrades, Dennis, we don't question the technology. We're waiting to see some of the stuff go live, man.
Well, I do question picking one over the other. Like, it gets more complicated than just using extended DOCSIS versus full duplex. Like, there's another critical change here that there's coming as far as a divergence goes. And it has to do with where routing is going to take place. So you have two trains of thought that are going on in this standard. One train of thought says that the routing and the compute basically should happen at the node, so closer to the consumer's household. Another train of thought, which is what Comcast is opting for, is having the routing and the compute happening at the head end. Now, why does this matter? the short answer is getting the compute and the routing to happen as close to the consumer as possible is important from a latency standpoint overall. It's more expensive to do, but it does improve latency overall. Having it happen at the head end is both more cost effective and in the long run allows you to do upgrades more affordably, but it may have an impact on latency, which one of the big goals here with Docsis 4.0 is supposed to be able to get latency down to fiber levels. So like that's another example of like a difference.
So depending on the direction they go, do you see a world or do you see a situation where they mess this up and drop the ball and it sets them back?
Yes.
Sheesh, man. All right, because they're already behind fiber. The moment fiber becomes available to premises, they lose, right? Or they could lose.
Yes, and the reason why I could see them messing up is because they're not interchangeable parts. Like if you decide to go extended Docsis right now, you will have to go back
There's
there
no
again.
turning back, right?
Yeah, like you will have to go in and rip and replace your whole network again
Right.
now to have it compatible for full duplex. So that's a concern. And the best analogy I can give with this is look at extended Docsis like HSPA Plus and full duplex being like LTE. That's the best analogy.
I don't like
give.
the sound of that, man, because you saw what happened. Verizon.
Sneed,
They were
you gotta
coming.
remember fiber's millimeter wave.
Facts.
So that would be the best analogy I can give is why this divergence isn't great. And it's going to have great impacts depending on the cable operator. Like if you have a Comcast, you're sitting kind of happy. They've committed to full duplex. It's already known that's happening. If you have a Cox and you're not in one of the places where Cox is opted to have fiber, you're sad right now. I'm sure you'll see improved speeds. Like I'm sure you'll still see improved uploads, but it will forever be asymmetrical. They will no, Sneed, they have an extra 600 megahertz to play with. They have an extra 600 megahertz of spectrum to play with, Sneed, they could put on the upstream. But it'll
Cox will do nothing.
TLDR though, you'll never see symmetrical speeds though, never ever, because it'll always be disproportionately allocated towards download if they do just extended Docsis.
But I just want to remind everybody out there that Cox is trash.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
You heard what Roger said. He said Cox is gonna lose the most from fixed wireless.
Oh, 100%. It's because they're smaller and they don't have the money necessary to do what a Comcast can from a deployment.
6.5 million subscribers.
So
which is peanuts.
So I saw a slide from Roger regarding that. Looked like the biggest complaint was customer service and reliability.
Yeah, but the biggest problem is like I was saying, Cox is tiny. They don't have like Comcast is not marketed as one, but they could be a tier 1 ISP. They have literally backbone fiber.
Who's number one? Who's number one in the country
for backbone fiber?
Number one internet provider in the country.
Probably AT&T.
Number two.
Lumen.
Are we just talking about enterprise or what?
The whole shebang.
If we're talking whole shebang, then I'm gonna go with Comcast.
Number three.
Verizon.
Number four.
Google Fiber.
Wrong.
No.
Who?
Lumen is bigger than Google Fi.
Okay, CenturyLink then. CenturyLink Fiber.
And then right outside of that,
actually, we should put Frontier
companies.
Fiber. We should put Frontier Fiber.
There are 5 companies who are bigger than Cox. 5. So in the world's largest connected country, they're the 5th, 6th, 7th company. That's big.
I would put them down at like 10th. Like we forgot about Spectrum. We forgot about freaking. I mean,
no, I got Spectrum. I got Spectrum in the top 6, and then it's like Cox, like right there.
You're giving Cox a lot of credit. You know, Cox. I think
I'm counting the subscribers, and I know that they provide enterprise fiber. So like, I have to get them somewhere in the top 10. I have to.
I'm trying to think if WoW Cable was as big as Cox.
No.
Nope.
No.
Smaller.
You said wow. All right, so you look at Cox in a different way than I do. See, to me, it's the big guys, and then it's Cox. You know, so like it'd be the equivalent of like, say for example, like the Yankees in baseball, right? Yankees, Red Sox, these big teams, the Dodgers, and then there's like the next tier of teams, right? That are good and competitive, but they're not a major market like that. That's Cox.
Yeah, I look at Cox more like the high school baseball team. Basically, I put them on par with like an Armstrong Cable that has like a regional foothold, or like
No.
you do realize that Armstrong actually spans a few different states, correct?
A few different states.
Yeah,
They're speckled in a few states. That's cute, Dennis.
yeah, they're in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Maryland, West Virginia, Kentucky, and New York.
Bro, I can build a bakery in each one of those states, and would you say the same about me?
You're a better service.
I'm just saying, like, Cox, like, they might have 6.5 million potential subscribers.
How many companies have 6.5 million subscribers, Dennis? Like 5. I'm telling you. I mean, they're losing some. That's coming too.
Well, how about Altice? Altice has to be bigger than Cox, right?
No. Altice is in like 3 markets, dog.
Yeah, but you're basing off of just subscribers at this point.
Yeah, but they're in markets where there's a lot of competition.
Like New York Tri-State.
Yeah, even in New York Tri-State, they probably still don't have more than a couple of million.
Anyway,
customers.
look, my main point is, regardless of size, Cox's biggest problem is they don't have fiber. Literally, like, they don't have their own backbone fiber. That's the point I was trying to touch on. More importantly, so like literally, they are the T-Mobile of cable providers. They are dependent on everybody else to sell service. You're laughing, but I'm being serious.
Because at least T-Mobile cares about their customers. They try to keep them.
Sure, they do. Have you called T-Mobile recently?
Hey, I'm just saying, T-Mobile does compete. There's nothing competitive about Cox.
Last time Snoop called T-Mobile.
I think you could say a lot of things about T-Mobile, but the things you have to say is they will compete. They do offer a good price point. Cox doesn't do any of those things.
Yeah, let's just agree that Cox is a bad company and should not exist anymore.
Yeah, they gotta go, man.
I
hope the people that work for Cox can find a good job working for AT&T or a fixed wireless provider.
No, I just want them to be under new ownership. Like, I feel like, I'll put it to you this way: if Cox was a publicly traded company, I guarantee there would be 100% change in how they're operating.
Do you know what just happened? Like maybe 3 months ago, Cox brought in new executives. Do you know where they got them from?
Where?
Lower level executives. Do you know what changed at the company since they came in?
Nothing.
More of the same. They literally did more of the same things, but like to a higher order. So they got scummier. They got dumber. It ain't gonna change anything. The culture of these companies is the problem. You know,
I can say that about every enterprise company at this point.
Facts, man.
But okay, so anyway, circling back though, main topic point. Do you agree with Comcast's point though? Optionality is better, not worse, when it comes to a standard like Docsis 4.0. Do you agree or disagree?
At this point in the game, it's hard to argue.
That it is better or it's not?
Well, I mean, are you saying it's better to leave it open-ended and then go in a certain direction at that moment in time, or did we just go all in and commit to something?
All right, let me put it this way. Is it better to have one standard that all companies in the industry follow, or allow for different companies to implement their own solutions that fit within their financial constraints?
You know what I'm going to say, Dennis? I love standards.
Same.
Because standards allow for streamlining production and manufacturing and orders and supply chain, and it kind of just helps the consumer. And in a way, it also helps the installers.
It also helps with hiring talented employees, so that way if a Cox technician wants to leave and work for Comcast, they don't have to be retrained on everything that how Docsis 4.0 works.
Facts, bro. Facts. Good point, Dennis.
So
by the way, my opinion is.
Go ahead.
My opinion is go with the 4.0. Nobody wants 3.1E.
Is that really in the works, bro? An E?
No, he's phrasing it that way because extended Docsis is essentially.
Yeah, I was about to say, bro. Like, I'm gonna pull my hair out. Man.
No, he's phrasing it that way because that's basically what extended Docsis is.
Yeah.
But I feel pretty good. We hit the hour mark. Is there any topics? I know you're always got your pulse on everything. Is there any topics that you were planning to share for tomorrow, or anything you want to just bring up real quick, real spicy that you want to talk about?
Nothing too spicy, Dennis. Just I think we have to evaluate this new Verizon discount a little bit. I have my reasons as to why they're doing it, and I
Can
look
you
at kind of the
inform
way
me
that
about the discount because I'm not aware of it yet?
Oh yeah, I just dropped a video before we went live, man.
3 lines, man. That's a hell of a cap.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, isn't it, Pete? Like they literally capped it at 3 lines or less. You know, so that's weird. I don't like that because
tell the audience first what the discount is, if you can. Like, inform me,
sure.
the audience.
Yeah. So I got the verbiage like right here. Hold on a second. Let me give you guys
online only insider discount with, was it $15 off 1 line, 25 off 2 or 3?
It's kind of, you know what it is, Pete? So if the insider's at 20% and a magenta line is what, 70? What is the magenta, Pete? 70, right?
Sounds about right. Maybe 65.
Okay, so if you're going to come in 20% off, right? You're going to save $10, $15.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That's how much this discount is. So I think it's literally designed to maybe take a load off of the single line customer. Right? It comes in at $55 for the start unlimited. It would be what's the do more get more, Dennis? Is it 80?
Let me just pull up Verizon's website. Hold on.
Because that discounts $25 on 2 lines. All right, so that it takes a little bit of the bite off the Verizon tax. So BYOD, you can do installments. You got to do this online though. It has to be an online order. So you can't like go in the store and be like, "Oh, let me get that Verizon promo discount." Like they're not.
I'm sure their employees that were commission based were super happy to hear that it's online only. All right, so I got it on the screen here, or I got at least the plans on the screen. I'm not sure if does it show on this page. Like, will I see the insider discount?
Yeah. So that 35, is that with a 4-line price? Go ahead and do 3.
Okay, there's
actually
3 lines.
Do two.
Okay, 2 lines.
All right, so the discount here would be $25 off if you get 2 lines. So 2 lines of start is $60. You're gonna take $15 off a line, right?
Right.
So that's gonna bring you. That's a pretty nice discount, man.
So 15 off is 60. That's 50, 45.
Make sure I'm pricing this right here. It's 1 line is 15 off, 2 lines is $25 off.
Oh,
so so it's like on the 2 lines, you're coming in at what, 120. You're coming in at $95 for 2 lines.
Okay.
All right, and that's the start. You want a better plan? You want to get a play more or do more? So you're coming in at 140 for 2 lines, and then they're taking off $25. So you're coming in at one.
But where do you actually see or get this discount? Because I don't actually see the discount.
I guess it's being sent or offered to people. They're like existing customers. You can also get it as a new customer, but it is internet channel only, so you can't get it inside the store.
Can't call them either.
Yeah, no calls. Yeah, it's weird. You have to activate a new line on the mix and match plans, so these only.
So
by the way, other discounts still count. Like if you wanted to, say, for example, still get your 50% off of home internet, that still applies. You could still get that.
So that stacks with does that stack with Fios's $15 off the plan?
Yeah, I don't think any of that's impacted by it.
So basically, it's only there for people with 0 to 2 lines to enterprise on.
I don't even see enterprise mentioned here, business. It looks like it's consumer only.
Take advantage of. So if you have 0, 1, or 2 lines, you can take advantage of it. If you have 3 lines already, you can't.
No, at 3 lines you can.
But
You'd have to be a new customer if you wanted
but
to
you'd
add
have
it.
to add a line.
Exactly. Yeah. So
So that would
Well,
put you at 4 lines.
at 4 lines, you don't qualify, my dude.
So wait,
Yeah,
I'm just trying to do.
You get this if you have 0, 1, or 2 lines and you add a line.
Yeah.
So Sneed, wait, I just want to make sure I'm doing this correctly. You said my Verizon discount that I get off like Play More, for example, which is $15 off the mobile,
Yeah, you're
would
good.
stack with this. So that would be 80 minus 20, which brings down to 60 minus 15. So you're telling me I could get a Play More line for $45?
Because you have the FiOS, I guess that works. Yeah.
Jesus H Christ, I might actually have to get a Verizon line if I can get that insider discount.
Yeah, I would say
$45.
at $45, a Playmore is a nice deal, or do more.
Dude, nice deal. That's a better than T-Mobile deal. Like, I get Hulu, Disney, and ESPN Plus. I get Apple Arcade or Google Pass. I get all this cool stuff. I mean, yeah, 50 gigs of premium network access, whatever.
So Dennis, when I first got the word of this, the source indicated that it wasn't stackable, and then when I read all the terms, it is.
If it's stackable, it is great. If it's not, it is meh. Because for the...
I'm telling you, on standalone by itself, it literally just takes the edge off.
Yeah.
It just makes Verizon like less awful.
It's like how T-Mobile became less awful with the Magenta Max insider discount.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Which I'm so glad that I have. Thank you, Alex, if you still watch the show. I appreciate you for giving me that hookup code.
Thanks, Al.
But yeah, I mean, I'm glad it exists. I think it's going to be competition. I think that honestly, it's most beneficial to the 5G Play More plan and the Get More plan, because honestly, if you were looking at Start, you should have just went with a prepaid plan at that point.
I mean, it's gonna make it $55, I guess, if you wanted to be on a postpaid account. But like, if you're going in at 5G Start, man, I mean, I'd push you anywhere else. I'd push you to US Mobile. I'd push you to hell, just Visible at that point. Just save the money since you're going to be on QCI 9.
Hey, Sneed, got an
Yeah.
interesting one for you. I'm here in this park, this field. My AT&T just gave me the no service badge.
Dude, AT&T is not good there.
No,
Where's the band 14, dog?
it's not connecting. I'll tell you that much.
And Pete's got, by the way, guys, Pete has upgraded devices. He doesn't use junk.
Yeah, he just uses the Google Pixel, which is totally not junk.
Hey.
Well, it's a 6 Pro. It's a recent one.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just busting your guys' chops. But hey, there's one more thing I just thought about since we're talking about Verizon. Have you seen all the Twitter posts that have come from the community about people getting warnings for their data usage on the unlimited plans?
This is a bad look, man. I'm actually thinking about starting a series on the channel.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I got an idea, dog. I got an idea.
Do you want to share it?
Have you ever heard of Dear Abby?
I think so. It's like a help column piece.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing the carriers a Dear Abby.
Dear Sneed,
Do it.
I'm writing to you because Verizon has screwed me for the 50th time. I'm
Yeah,
like,
and I literally read letters going to customers.
I'm like, I can't think of the word for it, but I've fallen in love with my abuser and can't leave. Please tell me what I should do. They're charging
Stockholm
me $500.
syndrome.
Thank you. I have Stockholm syndrome. Please tell me what I should do for I'm paying $500 for this buy the gig plan that I don't want to get off of because blah, blah, blah. Send help.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, speaking of outrageous bills, one more thing. How about the AT&T bill? Did you see the news article about that? Lady got slapped with like a massive AT&T bill.
No, I didn't see it.
Pete, I know you're
I
on
did.
it. Go ahead and tell the
Dennis,
audience.
I do have to get going here. But Dennis, thanks for having me on the show, man. I'm sorry I couldn't stay on too long, but I do have to get to something before.
Oh, you're good. Then let's just end it then,
Yeah,
guys.
What was it
I would have
like,
stayed on longer, man. I'm sorry, man.
Oh,
but
you're
I do
good,
have to-
guys. It's
I
hey,
know.
listen, a bunch happened. What happened, Sneed or Pete?
What was it like, 4K in a month?
Something. We'll talk about it next time. We'll talk about it on the Sneak Show on Friday. But guys,
do it.
thank y'all for coming out and
Deal.
supporting the show. If you could make sure to smash that like button, share it with a friend, timestamp your favorite mood on Twitter, and use hashtag BestPhonePlans if you would. But we're out this piece. Peace.
Peace.
Sorry I wasn't in chat.